Hi everyone, this is Jonathan here, and in this first video, or second video if you don't, or if you're counting the intro, we're going to be adding a multiple life system to the Block Breaker game. If you didn't watch the first video, this game is created in the Udemy course taught by Ben Tristram. You can download the full game, or you can make it yourself, which I recommend doing. But if you want to just go from these videos, go to section 5 under Block Breaker, scroll down to lecture number 96, and you can download the project here. That is the project I will be working off of. I was going to use my own game, but I don't have a saved version of it from this point. I only have a version of it with all the stuff I'm going to show you how to create already created. So for now, I will be going off of Ben's version, which is where the course finishes off, and I'm just picking up right from there, so nice and convenient for you. So to get started, we are going to go into our game objects up at the top and add a new UI element, which is a text object. And that's automatically going to create a canvas. We're going to take that canvas, and on the right hand side, we're going to change the render mode from screen space overlay to screen space camera. We are going to attach the main camera onto it. Then we are going to go under to the canvas scaler and change the UI scale mode to scale with screen size, and under screen match mode we're going to change it from match width or height simply to expand. Now I'm not going to go over what all this does. Ben does a fantastic job of explaining all of this stuff in the Glitch Garden course, so for now just follow along with this and trust that it is going to work. Now we are going to take this new text UI object, place it over here in the upper right corner, and we're going to change a few things. Number one, we're going to change the font to the font that we've been using for this game. We're going to increase this font size, maybe up to about 32. Make it a little bit bigger so we can actually see what we're dealing with. Change the color so we can see it, make it white. And finally, I'm going to change the text itself to say lives:3. And from there, that is good. Now I'm going to do one more thing. Alright, I'm going to rename it to lives text, and then I'm going to copy it and paste it. I'm going to drag that pasted version down a little bit, and we're just going to rename that to coins text, and we're going to say coins:0. Now I'm not going to be showing you how to do coins in this video, but that's okay. We're just getting it set up right now because it seems to be a good time to do that. And I'm just going to move these two pieces of text over a little bit as well. Okay, good stuff. Now from here, we're going to open up our Lose Collider script, which is attached to the Lose Collider at the bottom of the screen. And this is where we're going to be controlling our lives system from. So go ahead and open that up in MonoDevelop and follow along. So let me see if I can make this a little bigger here. There we go. So at the very top of the screen, we are going to start off by declaring a public static integer. And we are just going to call this number of lives. And if you can believe it, this is going to be controlling the number of lives that our player has. So from here, what we're going to have to do is change this so the game is not automatically going to end when the ball drops. And how are we going to do that? Well, we're simply going to use an if statement. So number one, we're going to say if num lives is less than 0, then we are going to execute a piece of code. And this is basically where we are going to say the game is going to end at this point because we do not have any more lives left. Now we can just simply say else, which should match any other criteria. And in here, we're just going to use a debug.log statement for now and say lost a life. And this is basically saying if we have more than 0 lives left, we are going to lose a life. And if we are losing more than 0 lives, or if we do not have any lives left, then the player is going to lose. And before we can do anything here, we haven't actually declared how many lives the player has. So we're going to recreate the start method for this, and in here we are simply going to say we're going to make, well, first of all, we could say number of lives equals 3, but the problem with this is that every time a new level loads, it's going to re-specify this variable here, and it's going to say our player has 3 lives again. Well, we don't want that. And I have someone messaging me on Facebook. I'm just going to close that out for now. We're going to use another if statement here to say if the application loaded level name is equal to level 01, that's the name of the first level, then we are going to execute this code. Only on level 1 are we going to declare that our player has 3 lives. And we can again just use a debug.log statement to show that that is working. So we can say player has 3 lives. Save that, and we can test that this is now going to actually be working. So let's go ahead back to Unity and run the game and test it. Oops. Oh, I see I made a mistake here. I got an error. That is because I'm trying to declare application loaded level name to level 1. We need to use 2 equal signs, not to set it to level 1, but just to compare it and say it is level 1. Props to you if you spotted that before I did. Now let's go ahead and try to run this game. Okay, so at the start in the console it says player has 3 lives. That's great. Now let's see what happens if I drop the ball. And it says lost a life. Wonderful. Now nothing else is happening, of course, because at this point we haven't told the game to actually do anything yet. But it is telling me that I lost a life, so that is good. So next we're going to have to handle this portion here about actually losing a life. And for this we're going to create a new empty game object here in our inspector, and we are going to call it gameplay controller. And from here we're going to add another script onto it, and we're going to create a new script, and we're going to call this script also gameplay controller. And just add that on here. And now that we have our gameplay controller and gameplay controller script, we can put that script into the scripts folder. And we can also turn both the gameplay controller and the entire canvas into a prefab. So we can just drag those right in there. Now let's open up this gameplay controller script and see what it is we're going to be doing with it. So here it is. So I'm going to show you a couple of things you haven't seen before. But number one, we're going to start off by typing at the very top using UnityEngine.ui, and this is because we're using text elements. And as you might remember from some of the other earlier projects, whenever you're using a canvas, you need to have this using UnityEngine.ui at the very top. So from here, we are going to have to declare our text fields. Now I'm going to show you, you haven't seen this before, that is if you're just starting with this course, but I'm going to make this a private text field instead of a public text field. And I'm going to create 2 text fields called life count and coin count. Now if we go to save this and look back in the inspector and look at our gameplay controller, nothing's going to show up here in the inspector for this item simply because we made it private. It's not going to show up. But we do need to drag the text onto it from the canvas. So for this, we're going to go right above this private text field, and we're going to put in square brackets serialize field. And this basically allows us, once we save it, to see these private elements in the inspector, and it lets us drag and drop them on. Oops, and I don't want to drag these elements on. I want to actually drag the prefabs on. And you might be wondering, why would I do this? Why wouldn't I just make them public? Well, it does achieve the same result. However, let's keep in mind here that these text fields, life count and coin count, are not going to be needed to be used outside of this gameplay controller script. So if I make it public, it could imply that they are going to be used in a different script. Which, if you're coming back to it later, you might look at it and say, oh, which other script am I using this in? Or if you're working with someone else, they might see it's public and start thinking it's being used somewhere else. So this private text with a serialized field is just a way of saying that we're only using these elements within this gameplay controller script, and we do need to drag it on, so we serialize it so we can drag these elements on. I hope that made sense to you. If it didn't, please ask questions in the comments field of this video. Now I'm going to show you one more new thing here, and we're going to start by creating a void awake function. And within this void awake, we're going to call another function that we haven't created yet called make instance. Now we're going to go down here. We can just rename this update field to make instance, and we are going to put in here if instance is equal to null. I correctly used the double equal sign this time. We can simply say instance, oops. We cannot say this yet here. I forgot to do one thing first. Up at the very top, I am going to create public static gameplay controller instance. I forgot to declare it. Now, under this make instance field, if instance equals null, we're going to say instance equals this, and we are just going to print that out to say making instance. Now you might be wondering, what the heck is this all about? This is basically going to allow us to call this gameplay controller script from other classes without having to use any get component statements or anything along those lines. So if we run this one more time, I just want to check to see that this is going to be showing up in the console field. Am I still using equal signs incorrectly? What am I doing? Oh, because of course I said I didn't actually compare it to anything. I said if instance equals null, instance equals this, print making instance. Let's try this one more time. So up here we can see in the inspector it's making instance, so this is working. Let's go back to MonoDevelop and do this one more time. Now we're going to create one more function here, and we're going to call this void, or actually we're going to call this public void, because we're going to be calling this from a different script, count lives. And I'm going to show, and again, I don't think you've seen this at this point either, but we're going to be passing a variable to this script. Passing a variable basically means we're taking the value of a variable from one script and allowing ourselves to use it in another script. You will learn about this in Laser Defender, which comes after Block Breaker. Personally, I did find the description of this, or the explanation in Laser Defender, quite confusing, so I made another video that actually explains in detail what this actually is. I'll make a link to it here so you can click that and watch it and understand this. Go watch that video for a detailed explanation of what exactly this is. For now, you can, again, to continue to follow along. And we are going to say debug.log number of lives is plus num lives. And underneath that, we are going to say life count dot text equals lives colon quotation mark plus num lives. So this basically is going to control the text on our screen. That's going to show the player how many lives they currently have. Now we're going to go back to the lose collider script here, and within this one we are now going to go here to our else statement where it says debug.log lost a life, and we're going to pass the value of our lives variable to our gameplay controller script. And again, if this is confusing, please go watch my other video which explains what the heck I just said. Gameplay controller dot instance, this is why we created this instance earlier, because it's allowing us to do this, count lives. Now we're going to pass the value of our static integer, number of lives, put a semicolon on the end, and we're going to pass that into our gameplay controller script. But let's go back, run the game. Hopefully I declared everything correctly this time. I did. Now let's watch what happens when I lose a life. And it still says number of lives 3, which means I made a mistake somewhere. Whoops. Oh, I know what I did. I didn't actually make the player lose a life yet. Of course, it is working correctly. I just forgot to actually say when you lose a ball, you actually lose a life. So we're just going to say number of lives minus minus, which is a shorthandle form way of subtracting a number from a variable. One more time, we'll run this. And we will go to lose a life. And it does say in the console at the bottom, number of lives is 2. However, our text element at the top did not update. So the reason it was doing this, updating or only updating to 2 lives after the game ended, is because I incorrectly attached the prefab of the canvas text items onto the gameplay controller. In this case, what we actually need to do is just attach the raw canvas items themselves onto the gameplay controller. So putting basically the live score, oops, and I need to actually do that with this version here, putting the live score and the coin score onto it, and then hitting play. And when we run it now, it correctly goes down to 2 lives. So that does get our game working to this point with the decreasing life count. In the next video, I'm going to show you how you can actually respawn the ball and make the player lose all their lives and die a horrible, horrible death. Thanks very much for watching. If you like this, subscribe, and we'll continue the series.